2, 1、スタート。久しぶりに思いっきり走っちゃうよ。全力で楽しんじゃうからね。
Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. We are doing a video on a particular topic rather than a single game, but it was a game that inspired the topic. The game is Kandagawa Jet Girls, which has just come out on PC and I believe PlayStation, well, definitely has come out on PlayStation 4. I believe those are the only two platforms. I don't think it's available on Xbox and it's certainly not available on Nintendo Switch. So it seems to be a PC and PS4 only game. It comes to us from the same people or the same creative mind that made the Senran Kagura series. So that should tell you what you're in for with this. Jet skis, big breasts and plenty of wet. It's a very fan-servicey game, and that's what the video I'm doing today is going to talk about, fan service, because fan service as a topic is something that I think is quite limited in terms of how we talk about it in video games. Fan service is broader in the general arts and culture space than in video games. In video games, when critics write about fan service, they tend to talk about it specifically with regards to anime games, and this particular anime game where you've got a lot of swimsuits, big breasts, all that kind of stuff. That's what tends to be written up as fan service, and it is almost always used as a pejorative. So when I look at the reviews of Kandagawa Jet Girls, for example, not including mine, and by the way, you can check out my review on digitallydownloaded.net. I think I'm an outlier with it. I've given it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The Metacritic average is about 60, so I'm definitely out there on my own waving the flag as having really enjoyed this game. But to get back to my point, when I read some of the other reviews of Kandagawa Jet Girls, there was this sense that it probably would have scored higher was it not for the fan service, because critics enjoyed the game in general and principle, but found the fan service to be nonsense and whatever. And that's quite common. Everybody who watches this channel knows that I absolutely love my Dead or Alive, and Dead or Alive for the longest time has been a really good quality fighting game that has been dismissed and derided because of the fan service elements of it. And when we talk about video games, that tends to be about as far as we talk about with regards to fan service. It is a negative thing, and it is applied to anime games that are of a particular persuasion. But the reason I wanted to do this video is to kind of highlight that in the general arts and culture, fan service is a much broader topic than that. And fan service goes back a very, very long time and has been a part of the storytelling tradition for an awful long time. So I'm actually going to talk about Shakespeare on this video, and bear with me because if you're not a fan of Shakespeare, this is probably going to be a bit dull, but it is important for historical context. Shakespeare wrote a series of plays about King Henry. Well, it was Prince Henry originally, then became King Henry. Henry IV, Part 1 and Part 2, charted the story of Prince Henry on the way to become king, at which point there was Henry V as the play. Now, Henry IV, Part 1 and Part 2 had a character in there that was incredibly popular. His name was John Falstaff. And Falstaff dies at the end of Henry IV Part 2, and I believe, it's been a long time since I read the play or watched it, I believe it happens off stage, and it kind of marks the transition of Henry from being this kind of loutish guy that hangs out with this Falstaff to becoming a noble prince and future king. Falstaff was this kind of fat buffoon. He was a bit of a coward. He tricked his way into getting an army together when he was called on to fight in a war. He kept a lot of the money and basically bought the cheapest soldiers he could find, so he had some pretty terrible soldiers on the field on the battlefield. He was a comic character by those circumstances, and he was very popular. Like, he was a very popular character within Shakespeare's writing, and that is why it would seem that a later play of Shakespeare's called The Merry Wives of Windsor was written really as a fan service delivery mechanism for this Sir John Falstaff. because the actual cover of the play actually mentions John Falstaff. So the full name of it is The Merry Wives of Windsor, or Sir John Falstaff and the Merry Wives of Windsor. Now, it's a bit hard to tell exactly when Shakespeare wrote a lot of his plays because there's a lot of discrepancies and people do debate the order in which they were published, but it definitely does seem like The Merry Wives of Windsor was written after Henry IV, Part 1 and Part 2, and was written as a fan service delivery mechanism for this loutish character that audiences of the time really loved. And that idea of putting a character in a play just because he's popular is very, it's kind of the definition of the word fan service. This is what fan service is. It's not just about putting characters in bikinis and throwing them on the screen. That is giving the fans what they want, and that is kind of the broad definition of fan service. But you can give the fans what they want in many different ways. It doesn't just have to involve half-naked girls. And we see a lot of that type of fan service, the kind of the Shakespearean, giving the fans what they want fan service, in Western games as well. And it comes in all kinds of forms. So, for example, the Spider-Man game, you can get all the unlock costumes from pretty much all of Spider-Man's history in Spider-Man. That is fan service. That is exactly fan service, because fans of Spider-Man who have been reading the comics for however many years love those different costumes, and the ability to dress your character up in those costumes and then go out and fight is by definition fan service. The Marvel game that's coming up seems to be very fan-servicey because they're throwing all these characters in, and in fact they've marketed it. They've turned it into this marketing opportunity by, again, making Spider-Man exclusive content for the PlayStation version of the Avengers. That is monetizing the fan service. People want Spider-Man in their Avengers game. So Sony is out there, Sony and Square Enix, are out there making money of that desire. It is really no different to throwing bikinis on Murray Rose in Dead or Alive and then selling those bikinis for a premium. That is also, these are all examples of fan service. And yet, when we talk about the Avengers, we certainly criticize, or at least we are at the moment, we certainly criticize the Avengers for its quite aggressive monetization model and that exclusive, which does upset a lot of people who won't be playing the game on the PlayStation 4. But what I've never seen it referred to as is fan service. People talk about it in all kinds of negative ways, but they don't talk about it as fan service, because again, going back to the start of the video, fan service is this thing that is criticized as pretty much exclusive to Japanese game media and a specific type, where you put Rise from Persona in an Arabian costume. That's fan service, and we'll criticize the game for that, but we're not going to criticize the Avengers game for having fan service in the form of Spider-Man being exclusive to a console. So this is the problem with the use of the word fan service, because if you see it, it's generally used as a negative, and while there are lots of people that do use it as a positive thing as well, like for example, I will often talk about games where I call them fan-servicey because the fan service is in service of the humour. For example, Senran Kagura or Kandagawa, Jet Girls. The fan service in those games is in service of the humour of those games. I do use it in a positive sense, but a sizable number of people who then read my review will see it as a negative thing, that I've gone and basically told them that this game is a pervy game that they shouldn't be playing because fan service is a bad thing. So that's why we need to adjust how we talk about fan service, and I think we need to adopt the broader conversation around it. We need to start calling things like Spider-Man costumes in Spider-Man fan service, because that's what it is. We need to start talking about all kinds of actual video games that are made in particular service of fan service. So, for example, that John Wick game, I really love that game. I think it's an excellent game, and it helps kind of build the John Wick franchise as the property, but it's also fan service. The existence of that game in itself is fan service, because it is there to appeal to fans who have wanted to play a John Wick game, and the quality of that game really relied on its ability to give the fans of the media property what they wanted. in the in a video game form. So yeah, that's my reflections on fan service. I think that if we can broaden the way that we use that word to something which is more appropriate to, I guess, what the word actually means, then we will be able to start having more nuanced discussions about whether the application of fan service to games, like the Japanese games even, is appropriate for that game, or whether it derides or it takes away from the quality of the game. Anyway, let me know your own thoughts about fan service as a word. Definitely keen to hear what you think, and thanks as always for watching. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoy my videos, because that will help me do more of them. Keep the subscriber count going up for me. I do like seeing that number grow. Please do consider backing me on Patreon if you enjoy my videos. That way I am able to invest in the channel further and do more with it. And stay tuned, we've got plenty more videos coming this week, as well as a stream at the end of the week. Thanks as always for watching, and see you next time.